welcome back to Wixo. What if civilization started over? I think it's episode... Oh no, it's happening again. Pretty sure it's 21. Yeah, because the first I uploaded 3 days in a row, like 2 weeks ago, and it was episode 18, 19, and 20, so this should be 21. Also, episode 18 got like 60-something views. That was pretty cool. I think 62 as of this moment, so thanks. Keep watching, please. I don't know, it might be boring. But let's try not to be boring. Heading into this video, we're gonna see war in South Asia. And... okay, hold up. Why does Burma Siam have 3 capitals? That isn't... okay, hold up. Hold up. What is going on here? What in tarnation? These should just be like major cities. I don't know how they ended up being capitals still. I don't know. You know, I'm gonna give Burma Siam a few extra cities. They'll put like one like there. So take one like way out here. Maybe a few more in like this area. There we go. Nice. Okay. I'll probably update the cities map sometime soon, maybe. I don't know. I feel like some places are kind of low on cities. I feel like South Asia is definitely pretty good. Like over here in the India area. But some of the other areas are lacking for cities. But anyways, focus of this video is the South Asia area. Particularly over here. But first, actually, before we get to that, let's take a quick peek at the Americas and the colonization that's going on. So we'll start out with the Estonians, who will be ramping up their expansion over here in Quebec. One of those two, I don't remember. They'll be moving a little deeper inland, trying to secure as much of this area as possible. They have 2 major cities, which is pretty cool. They'll also make sure they don't kind of get screwed out of land by their colonizing neighbor Rome. They'll move inland, and then they'll move along the coast over here in the west, along the Hudson Bay. And overall, they'll do a adequate job at expanding. They'll also make a landing on a few of these islands out here, and this one in particular, this really big island, this one, they'll make a landing over here. As for Rome, they'll kind of do similar. There's no island to hop to, so they can't do that, but they'll do a little expanding over here, kind of inland along the Estonia colonies border. But most of their efforts will be focused down here along the coastline. Eventually they'll reach this, like, I don't even know what that is, lagoon. They'll move a little bit inland, but they'll also make sure to move along the coastline of this area. Definitely expanding their colony big time. As for Scotland, their advances are kind of beginning to slow a little bit. They're running out of funding. They're holding onto a lot of territory given their strength. So we'll see how that goes. As for the Danish-Prussian colony, it's actually doing very well. They kind of rush up here and just develop a border with this area. I think this is... yeah, you could go through here. So they have that, and they kind of just develop all this area, eventually meeting up with the border of the Scottish team and securing the entire west side of... or not west side, east side of whatever this is. This river has a name, I know it, I just don't know it, you know. But anyways, they'll complete this entire area off and completely take it. Big win for Danish Prussia's colony. They also develop New Jersey. I don't know. make of that what you will. Over here in Florida, the French team will begin their move. And they'll move pretty fast. They'll move across Florida, completely develop this entire area, and then they'll make their move kind of slowly up the Carolinas coast. Maybe they'll make a little more move down here. You can't go much farther south than this because it's pretty much just swamp, so it's going to be kind of difficult. As for the Green Africa team, over here, their adventures in the New World are over here in these island countries. They'll completely take control of Hispaniola. They will also begin accelerating their program into Cuba, and after a little while they'll be able to take full control of the island as well as discovering Jamaica. So now they have all of this, and they're doing pretty good. They're doing solid. They have these colonies over here. They're not like super strong or anything. Like, they're not gonna be able to do what like Rome and Danish Prussia are doing up here, developing big old colonies, but they're doing fine. As for the old Empyrean colony down here in South America, it's doing good, but it's not doing as good as you think it would, because the old empire might be really strong, but a lot of their focus is very central towards the countries around them and their mainland. But they do take time to put like at least a little bit of effort into their exploration of the New World. They have all these islands. They have Puerto Rico. They have all this. As for Sparta's claim, it has nearly come to a complete stop. Very little resources are flowing in, and expansion has nearly halted. Right around here, looking something like this. Not much is moving for them. Over here, the Filipino Borneo country, and they're landing over here. I think I kind of made it a little too big. So, pretend they expanded more, but I'm only going to draw a little bit in. So, like, imagine this was a big expand for them. They land in the Galapagos, they land over here. They kind of have this, like, western area, but yeah. And speaking of giant expansions, I think this is Japan. They made a huge expansion over here. I'm also going to kind of apply the same logic. They do a little expanding along the coast. They do some inland expanding near the Andes. Pretend that was a huge expand, because kind of drew them pretty big. And then I don't think anybody else is in South America. So just trying to move to the west coast of America over here with Japan's other colony, which is moving pretty well. They'll continue to develop some of these like British Columbia areas. I imagine they've like discovered Vancouver Island. I think that's what this is called. They've done like that much. And then inland they've made a little bit of progress. I don't know where the Rocky Mountains flow exactly through Canada, but those are somewhere in here. As for North China's claim, they're gonna maybe not put pedal to the metal, but they're gonna step it up a little bit after I finish trying to fix this like weird border trail thing. Anyways, they'll move along the coast in the south of Alaska, eventually meeting up with the border of the Japanese colony, which I'm sure they're thrilled about. And then they'll kind of just in total move out towards the middle of Alaska. In fact, they'll kind of do this thing where they branch out and then meet in the middle. What's that one purple pixel? Okay, I think that's gone. And then this area kind of just by default falls under their control. Not that there's a whole lot of people there. And then their progress over here is slow but vigilant. They'll continue to expand their claim in Alaska until it looks something like this. Not bad. Not bad at all. They're getting there. You know, they'll make it one day. I think that's it for all the I think that's it for all the countries over here. So let's now move to South Asia, where we will have conflict ensuing. So over here we have conflict. Who's gonna start it? Well, probably not that surprising, but it's gonna be Burma Siam. They're going to start it with their invasion of Sumatra. They're not going to directly invade the island itself through here, although that would probably help them, Strait of Malacca. But they're actually looking for Sri Lanka. They want to have it. So they land on the north side of the island and pretty quickly capture the east side of it, and then further push inland and completely take control. Which is fine. Sumatra's willing to, like, not ignore it, but, like, concede it in order to not get invaded. However, another country will kind of hop on board the issue, and that's Java, who's immediately going to send forces up, capture this major city, and begin a front in South Sumatra. And from here, Burma Siam's kind of just like, well, don't mind if I do. They cross over here, completely capturing this coastal region by the strait, and then they kind of just slowly move up the island. They'll kind of land here, capture the major city in the north, and eventually these fronts connect. The north part of the island falls. In the western area, these islands fall under Burma Siam's control, and eventually they kind of just push until they are just outside the capital of the country. It is at this point that other countries will begin to get involved, most notably Filipino Borneo will be quick to jump on board, and they'll begin pumping troops into the Sumatra country to try and kick back their aggressors. And it will work, especially over here in the east, where they'll push back significantly. Over here in the coast, not quite gaining re-access to the Strait of Malacca, but definitely making a statement. They'll also recapture this island. They'll also push back in the south against Java, who's not that strong comparatively. They'll nearly kick them out, but they hold on to the major city in the south. And this whole conflict in the south of Asia is getting other countries thinking about potential aggressions against these guys. And one of those countries is this, I just had a complete blank. It's India. India does not like them ever since they invaded the East Indian country. And so them and their friend, the dark gray Indian country here, I don't think they're friends, but I think they have a common enemy in these guys, who they kind of see as not Indian, more Southeast Asian, and threatening their land. Even though they do, like, they are from India, they migrated this way. But who knows how long ago that was, so yeah. But India's going to move in with surprising speed. They'll capture this major city and push along the coast, capturing yet another, and yet another. And then they kind of just push through the more empty hillsides. As for the dark gray Indian country up here in the north, they're going to spearhead out from here, capture this major city, and this major city. They'll kind of fill in the front lines, except over here it's kind of hard to. So they'll kind of fill this in. But yeah, now they have two major countries fighting them from the west. They will pull all forces from Sumatra and kind of just leave them to fall back, kind of leave it up to Java. However, Borneo's still fighting, so that's going to lead to a problem. But yeah, they fall back in Sumatra. They completely leave the core island, including this major city up here. The only part they don't abandon is Sri Lanka, but it doesn't really matter in that case because India's already there. They're going to arrive and take the island. And big problem time for Burma Siam. However, their troops are beginning to make their way up to the front line, and it's kind of leaving Java to die at this point, or it would. Borneo and Sumatra versus them, with Borneo obviously having potential land ambitions in Australia, and probably being very easily able to get Australia on their side, so who knows. But they're going to remain neutral. But it seems like it's going to be a Java jumping. That is until North China decides to get involved, as they love to do. They declare war on Borneo, Philippines, and they begin moving into their claim in South China. However, this will also snowball as someone's very mad at China for doing that. Someone who also holds land in core South China, and that's Japan, who also declares war on them. And immediately, a gigantic naval skirmish will take place over here in the, I don't know what this sea is called, but basically all across the coast of Japan, a massive battle is taking place. Battle is also taking place over here in their claim in China. However, North China is just on one right now. They will completely bull rush right through Japan's claim in core China. They will, however, ignore Taiwan for the moment. They're focusing on just securing all this land over here in the mainland of China. This will also prompt Vietnam to join the war and begin assisting. They will push out here, capture this major city, and eventually they will completely wrap around this inlet. I think this is where Hong Kong is in real life, so I guess this city is Hong Kong. Yay. And China kind of doesn't really care about Vietnam. They're just like, okay, they're there. Good on you. They'll capture the rest of this Philippine area and fall back to it. However, because China doesn't really care about Vietnam, and because Burma-Siam also doesn't really care about Vietnam, when Cambodia joins the war and just starts moving on in and captures two major cities and just continues rolling up the peninsula, nobody really bats an eye. And it's kind of impressive actually on Cambodia's part, because like looking at it from the map, like at least before they invaded, Vietnam is like 3 times bigger than them, but they're also newer, less stable, less organized, and Cambodia is surprisingly strong given how big they are. So they're actually going to be able to do quite a bit. They will continue pushing along the coastline, and in the more rural areas they'll spearhead out and capture cities. Did Vietnam have a capital? I just realized Vietnam I don't think had a capital. Whatever, it's going to be right here on this like tail, and they'll continue pushing closer towards it. They'll completely cut the area off, continue circling along the coastline, eventually meeting up with China, who again doesn't really care. Their focuses are more towards their foe to the east in Japan. So Cambodia just continues moving on in, and no one really cares. They'll sweep on through, capture this last major city, and then Vietnam will essentially surrender. I thought I already did this, but this is screwed. They get destroyed. Then their area kind of surrenders, and it'll kind of just, most of the south area will fall under de facto Cambodia control, but even they have their limits, so this northern area will be occupied by a joint control of China and Burma-Siam, who are fighting on the same team, if I'm not mistaken. They have a common enemy in... Whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Whoa, okay. It undid everything. They have a common enemy in Borneo, Filipina, so I guess they're fighting together, except most of Burma-Siam's forces are heading towards India, while China's are kind of futzing around over here. So that'll be how things are rolling. Let me real quickly color this in gray, and then we could get back to the western issue over here. Burma-Siam's focus is not on this gray Indian country, it is almost solely on the blue Indian country, especially along the coastline. So they'll continue pushing here, and they'll kind of threaten this major city, but won't quite be able to get there. The blue team, meanwhile, will make counteroffensives in the rural area, trying to threaten this city right here. Will they get there? Who knows? But one thing is certain, the gray team is moving very steadily. There aren't many major cities in this like giant rural area, so This gray team's got a long way to go, but they're just slowly but surely making their way through. Because if they could capture these three major cities, they could kind of create a perimeter around what was once the Bengali country. They'll also kind of make some moves around here, threatening some of the cities down here. This isn't their end goal, but this could also potentially encircle some areas, which is why Burma Siam will kind of push back in this area big time, attempting to capture this major city, and they will. So this area of their front line fails, however, up here, unchanging. As for China's fight with Japan, again, there are no actual, there's no movement in the sea. It's still very intense fighting. Taiwan also stands strong. However, up here in the, what's this island called? Why am I forgetting the name of this island? Sakhalin. In the Sakhalin Islands, in this like northern Japanese island, China will continue their attempt to invade Japan. They'll make a landing up here in this northern island, and they'll push down these islands, eventually capturing this and landing on the mainland Japanese isle, kind of getting two footholds over here. So we'll see how this goes. However, in the sea, Japan's navy is winning. They are pushing closer and closer to the coastline, with goals of potentially landing in Korea. So remains to be seen. But for now, besides China, Burma Siam is kind of getting I don't want to say whooped. They're still making gains, but like if things keep going the way they are, the Indian countries aren't going to be able to overpower them, and it's not looking good, especially after a major counteroffensive happens by the Blue Indian country, which leads to the fall of two more cities that were under Burma Siam's control. There is this kind of like population center here. They push out to the coast and completely capture this, eventually moving in and taking this major city as they move closer to the heart of what was once the Bengali country, as well as the continued push by the gray team over here into the rural areas. They kind of amp it up, stay away from the most, the brunt of Burma Siam's forces, and then they move over here, approaching these three cities, but they don't even push into these three cities. They push around them, straight to the coast, and capture them, where they begin pumping forces straight into, again, the heart of what was the Bengali country. And along with the Indian country, they are able to capture this area and stop. They shut it down, basically, which will lead to its very rapid capitulation to these two Indian countries. And very quickly, the war is turning very far against the Burma Siamese. They are struggling now. They have been almost kicked out of the Indian subcontinent altogether, holding out in the very eastern parts of Bengali. Hold on, I'm recording. Alright, I'll shoot. I don't even know. Okay, well, I know this isn't where I wanted to end, but it's probably gonna have to be a part 2. You know, we'll end on the climactic moment, which is gonna be Burma Siam gets very lucky. The old empire joins the war to fight India and try and rob some of their eastern land. They capture this major city, push along the coast, capture this one, capture these two, and it's looking great. Also, this green team joins the war and it's pushing into the Afghan area. But anyways, thanks for watching. I'm gonna have to end the recording now. Unfortunate, but you know that's just how it be. So thanks, please like, goodbye.